Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Church Leadership Lab, where we have conversations that empower healthy churches. We are grateful for you listening today, whether you're watching this, listening, doing both, all the above. Thank you for being with us. My name is Scott. This is Casey. We are the hosts of the Church Leadership Lab podcast.
That's a fact.
That's
it's
a fact.
Just us.
It's a fact. And, it's really something that we're known for, something that we do, and something I enjoy. I think this is one of the things that I love is having conversations and really exploring the different ways too that church leaders can be served, because there's a lot. Like we've had some conversations recently, whether it's talking about finances, talking about facilities, talking about community outreach, mental health, like all of that. And I don't know about you, but I find it really interesting, and really helps to see too, just how complex and difficult sometimes leading a church can be.
Well, we just go to church as a weekend attendee, and we listen to music, we sing, we check our kids in, and we go home.
Yeah.
There's so much more that goes on. I think sometimes pastors are like, you don't know how hard this is.
Yeah.
We're doing so much more than what you see. So kind of getting to highlight some of that is, it's nice.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we did recently, sat down with some folks in person to have some conversations. One of them that we had was with Justin Romine from HR Ministry Solutions. And this conversation to me was so interesting because especially thinking through HR as a place of employment in the church, those are just worlds that are, it's difficult to navigate, right? And it's one of those things that you definitely don't have, HR courses, or you're not certified in HR when you start leading a church, but all of a sudden you're the boss and you're the manager and you're all the above. And it's sort of like, okay, what do I do? How do I even be compliant? Because you're probably in a state with compliance laws, all of that stuff. And it can be a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Justin's so good. And I love the way he approaches something that isn't fun, like HR compliance, but also as an extension of ministry to make sure that you're able to do ministry well. I might be getting this wrong. So we can either add a note later, like Casey was so off, but I'm pretty sure everyone that works at HR Ministry Solutions has to have served in some capacity of ministry to work at their company. And so I love that it's people who actually have been in that seat, so they know it from both sides. Did I invent that? Did I dream that up?
No.
I swear that's true.
Yeah, no, I know in chatting with them that's something they value and have in place, because it's such a unique world. So to be able to understand it, to then serve people in it is so important. Now, Justin, he actually serves as the Senior Vice President of Strategy at HR Ministry Solutions. He spent 20 plus years as both a pastor and as an executive in the corporate ranks among Fortune 100 companies. He's passionate about the health of the church and coaching people toward their heart and purpose. He currently resides just outside of Boise, Idaho, with his wife and his 2 children. And we really enjoyed this conversation with Justin. We think you will as well. And so we will jump to it. Here's our conversation with Justin Romine. All right, Justin, thanks so much for being here, taking the time to have a conversation. We appreciate it. One of the things that we like to start with every guest is, we know there's a public bio that everyone has, it goes on the back of the book or the conference speaking, description or whatever. But there's always something that doesn't make the public bio that all your friends and family would know about you. So what would that be for you?
There's so many different ways I can go with this one.
It's an open door.
It is. I would say I'm a huge baseball fan.
Okay.
Not only just the game, and I have, my teams that I root for, the San Diego Padres and the Anaheim Angels, or the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. How weird is that? But anyways.
Wait. That's too many words.
It is way too many words.
And 2 cities?
Yeah, they do it. It's very confusing. See, I'm already confusing you. But it's not something I like, but it's something I live with.
Okay.
So, with that being said, not only do I love the game, but I get to coach, my son in baseball, and we have he plays travel baseball, so it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
And so that's something that everyone in my family very much knows or friends, because it consumes a lot of time, but you'll never see it in a bio. So,
What position does your son play?
You know what? He can kind of play anywhere, but this year he's been playing a lot of first base.
Okay.
And so he does a good job there, and he continues to just loving to learn the game. So.
What would make your coach dad heart happy if he played X position? You'd be like, yeah.
I just want him to have fun. So for me, like, it can get so serious so quick in the game, and I played for many years too. I want him to have fun anywhere on the field.
Mm-hmm. How old is he?
He's 12.
Oh, so it gets like really serious.
Really serious,
Or it can.
Yeah, it gets really serious. I think we'll play over 60 games this year.
Wow.
So, we've traveled to different states. We're actually, after this, we're going to Salt Lake City and playing a tournament. So, so a lot of fun. And the biggest thing is that it can get serious really quick. But if the thing I always say is, if you're not having fun, you're not playing the game right. And so that's one of my coach mantras that I'm often saying.
Nice. Coach Justin always says.
Yep.
You heard it here.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, we're gonna talk about a lot of things, HR and churches and ministries, and I know that's what you all do. I'm curious, what do you all see as you work with churches and ministries that can tend to be some of the big HR misses that are out there? I know that a lot of people get into ministry with a heart to serve the Lord, to serve the church, and so they may not come with some of that, necessary information. So what have you all seen in regards to that?
Yeah, there's so many, and actually we talk about this all the time, and trying to educate the Big C Church on what the HR misses are, because there is quite a few out there. For me, just a little bit about myself is I was a pastor for many years, and then I was also, after being a pastor, I started consulting churches and businesses. Was very fortunate to be sucked up into the corporate world and the C-suite, and did that for about a decade, and then really wanted to get back to serving the church. So in that, I got to see the difference between corporate HR very intimately and church HR. With that being said, it's very interesting because there's usually about a 30 to 40% difference in between the two. Okay. So we have a lot of people who come out of corporate HR into the church, and they're like, it's different. So one of the things that we get the opportunity to do is telling them how and why it is different. So the misses, I think that there's a lot of them. The reason that I mention kind of my own experience is because there's a lot of pastors who aren't equipped or trained. When they go through seminary, I went through seminary coursework, and they didn't talk about HR. And it's still an issue. So HR is the backbone of a healthy culture. We talk about in the church world how culture, we all want to have a healthy culture. We want to have a healthy culture. But if you don't have healthy HR systems in place, that's the backbone of a healthy culture. And one of the challenges with that is if we don't invest in that, then our people, our teams don't have an understanding of what their expectations are, the sandbox that they're allowed to play in, as well as a picture of the future for them to really, create a career in ministry so that they know they can take care of themselves and for their families. So when you don't provide that to them, it creates big question marks. And those question marks lead to a lot of different things. So some of the big misses are investing in your people, really knowing how to coach them and disciple them well through solid HR practices. There's a lot to say about that one just in itself. But creating things like job descriptions. If you create a good job description, you should be evaluating your people upon that job description. So having those successful conversations, creating a feedback loop, the one-on-one coaching opportunities that happen through tools and systems that coincide with those opportunities to really disciple your people well. The thing about HR in a ministry context is it is really a way for us to be intentional about discipleship. So investing in your people. I said a couple quick bullet points there. The other one too, and some practical things, are things like having a updated staff handbook, making sure that you have a staff handbook that reflects your values, but also reflects compliance laws, federally, state, and local. It's one of the biggest documents of liability that a church has. And in order to understand risk management from a church perspective, you really need to have some of these basic foundational pieces in place. And a lot of churches either don't have one, or if they do, it's outdated. And in certain states in the union, those things change almost every 6 months or a year, rapidly. So you always want to make sure to have it updated, because if something bad happens, the first thing that anyone legal or anyone bringing something against you is going to say, okay, let's see your staff handbook.
Yeah.
And if it says something, if you have one and it says something it shouldn't say, then they go, whoops. And then if you don't have one, they say, oh, well, you didn't even invest in it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a kind of a common miss that we see frequently. There's other ones as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that sandbox to play in, I think, is such a great analogy because, I think of things like time off, paid time off, is there a clear policy, and do people know what that is? Or is it sort of like, I don't know, can I? How much? I don't know. I can't plan,
Yeah.
And that's just one example, but I think it goes beyond that it's sometimes maybe people don't like the sandbox, which is fine, but oftentimes it's like, I don't even know what it is.
Right. We have a sandbox?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Well, and that's hard because then people don't feel like they're appreciated because then they don't know what time off they can take.
Right.
The other part is the other side. As discipling people well means that you're communicating well, that you're helping people take time off when they're not taking time off.
Yeah.
Or you're letting people know, oh, you've taken all your time off and you don't have any left, but build it back up.
Right.
So there's a lot of things practically that we can do where, that will help avoid burnout, which is a huge passion for us to talk about. That's a part of managing your people well, is being able to coach them through those sort of things.
Yeah.
And if something comes up, life happens all the time, whether we like it or not. And if something happens, to be able to say, hey, this is how we can help you get through this time.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of that recently, but with, just in the world itself and things that have happened like COVID and other things. So helping manage that.
Well, I'd love to tap into dive in, double click, whatever people say.
Love it.
I'd love to kind of hone in on that burnout piece because that is something that we're seeing, both burnout and then resignation or, I'm kind of done with this and
like leaving ministry entirely, not just like I'm done at this church, like I am leaving ministry.
Yes.
And that's worst case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm curious, what have you seen? I think a two-part question. One, what maybe have you seen that has led to this? So sort of like, sometimes it's like people say, if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it, right?
Yeah.
So what has happened? But then the second part would be, what can churches do to maybe change that trajectory or to, maybe fix a little bit of the problem?
Course correction.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great questions, and I think they do really lead into each other well. I think the first one is, burnout. What's going on in the world? Why are we seeing more of it? Well, COVID. At the end of the day, COVID was a huge catalyst that changed everything.
Yeah.
We're in the church and just in the world itself, we're going to be recovering from COVID for well over a decade or two. There's a whole generation, I believe, that'll be marked by going through COVID.
Yep.
I think, really we see a lot of, I have a high schooler, junior high school, college kids all went through this at a really transformative time in their life.
Sure.
Yep.
And they're marked by it. Each generation usually has something. I believe that they will be marked by that. Everyone has been. Everyone went through a lot of losses. I lost my younger brother during COVID. It was heartbreaking. It wasn't expected, and it was very difficult. Yes. But what we saw, I think, through COVID, and I experienced this myself, and I think everyone probably did to some extent, is they reevaluated because you went, what in the world is going on in the world?
Yeah.
And I think what happened is it made people evaluate their priorities and what was really important to them. And what that caused is for people to make decisions that were somewhat uncharacteristic of their normal flow and station in life. So I think we saw a lot of changes. We saw a lot of people make other decisions. It's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get back into ministry, because I missed it. Yeah. I missed it a lot. So I myself went through that reevaluation. So in regards to burnout, we saw a lot of people that went into COVID that were already burned out. And we saw a lot of pastors who'd been in the ministry for a long time say, if there's a time to go, it's now. And they push the eject button. The other thing is that we saw a lot of things happen with COVID where we're like, we're going to get through this. We're going to buckle down. We're going to, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we're going to figure this out. We're going to go online church when we maybe never had. There's all these things that happened, and people had to stretch and push and pull. Yeah. No one thought it was going to go as long as it did. And it went long. And a lot of the people who had to stretch and pull and, do what they had to do in regards to their ministry yoga got stretched out and burned out during that time. Right. And they came out the other side and went, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then
Thank you.
one of the things that helped in that was there was a workforce. Well, there we go. The Lord is speaking.
We got the. This is what I like about doing podcasts live, though.
We are live.
Sometimes you get the exhibitor announcement mid-episode segment.
Did not think about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it though.
No.
So that's from our sponsor, the conference announcer.
There it is. There it is. No, that's great. So there was this strange dynamic in the church world where you had some people who had been around a while going, I think I'm going to retire. You also had people in ministry, especially it tended to be worship leaders, youth pastors, kind of the generation of like younger leaders that got thrown into the role of, we need to communicate in a whole new way, and the senior pastor may not have known how to do that.
Yeah.
So you saw them getting pulled up into a higher level of leadership, which left a vacuum for a lot of those leaders. So there's been this really strange dynamic. And then you had people coming out, which I was mentioning before the voice of God came on the speaker there, is that when people were stretched and pushed and pulled in COVID and were working a lot of hours and setting up all these new things, they came out of it and there was a market in the secular realm that was dying for people. Because we've also seen the baby boomers retiring. And that was a huge population of people. So we saw them retiring and it's created a vacuum. So a lot of the talent that we see in ministry started competing with the secular world, and they're like, man, I'm burnt out. I'm not going to get paid anymore. My family is not taken care of to the extent I want them to be. We're struggling. We're trying to buy a house. We just, all of the things, right? So reality set in. A lot of those people left ministry altogether. There's a great Barna study on this as well that talks about it. Interestingly enough, women left the ministry at a higher rate than they had, like even higher than men in the study, which I found really quite interesting, because that's not a phenomenon that I've ever really seen before highlighted in a study like that. So I think those are a couple of the dynamics. I think one of the other things that changed, staffing. It changed hiring processes because people started looking at different things that they never looked at the same degree. For instance, the younger generations tend to look at location a lot more than past generations. So that's like one example. So there's a lot of different examples to it. Hopefully that answers your question. But how do we avoid it, I think, was the second part. I think it gets back to some of the things that I was talking about earlier. It's like, well, how are we investing in our people? Do you have a plan? Do you have HR systems in place? Do you know where your HR is at? Are you compliant? Like the things that we always ask is, are you compliant and are you in best practice? And the way that we look at that is, well, compliance is easy because a rule's a rule. The federal, state, local governments have their laws. The best practice part, we get to work with hundreds and hundreds of churches all across the country, from Florida to Hawaii on up to Alaska. We serve churches and ministries nationally, both big and small. So with that, we're able to understand a lot of the best practices that we're helping them discover or that we've discovered in working with other churches. So if they don't have a best practice, we say, well, luckily we know, not only from our experience ourselves, from our amazing team, because we only work with churches and ministries and everyone on our team is required to do that before they even join our team. But also to share the experience that we've learned from working with other churches as well. So having a plan, like have a plan for your people, because discipleship should be done on purpose, not on accident.
You may have already kind of inadvertently answered this, but you said some super fun words like rules and compliance, and those of us that...
She keyed into the rules, so it's explaining a lot about Casey.
As a natural rule, like, I heard that and just sunk in. But for those of us that have had corporate HR experiences, and I like that you even emphasize there's a difference. Because, there should be, but I don't think I've thought about it, and they'd say 40% difference between corporate and ministry, but... For those that think HR, I don't think we all go, ooh, HR, that's so fun. So HR initiatives tend to not exactly be morale boosters. And for our HR team, Tana, Holly, Gabe, Paul, y'all are the best.
We love you.
We love HR. We have a fantastic HR.
But I want to talk with you guys too. So
Listen.
But
I think we don't have like a super positive connotation when we think of HR initiatives. So even the shift to calling it people operations or people ops, what are some things that maybe church leaders can do to start maybe making that a more positive association to HR and not think, oh, that's just the rules, that's the handbook. But you've kind of talked about this with goal setting and I don't know, what are other things that church leaders can think about to make HR a really feel good experience?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, right? Because, people think of HR, especially that are from the corporate world, it has a different stigma to it.
Yeah.
A lot
they're the ones that fire you.
Oh, yeah, oftentimes, right? They're the ones who hire and fire you. That's when you see them most, or when something bad happens. Which doesn't have to be that way. It is an important function.
Sure.
Oftentimes when people think of HR, they think of Ned from The Office.
100%.
Toby. Why did I say Ned? Toby from The Office. Thank you.
Why are you the way that you are?
Yeah.
Like that's the question that HR gets asked all the time.
Total PTSD from living in Nashville. Ed, I will not say his last name, was our compliance officer at a huge healthcare system.
Okay, yeah.
On days where he had to let people go, he wore a pink shirt. And he told you that in like new employee trainings, like I wear pink shirts on the days that I have to let people be dismissed because it's a color that makes me feel a little less mean. So you would see Ed walking down the hallway in his pink shirt, like, oh no.
So he felt good, but everyone else felt horrible.
But he also gave you the
anxiety
warning.
attacks everywhere.
But it was kind of very fair to let you know if I'm wearing pink. So you don't, because you see Ed and you're like, oh no, is this good? Is this bad? You knew one way or the other. But very negative associations with HR.
I think the challenge is that when HR is rolling out initiatives and things like that, it affects everybody. Yeah. Most of the time it affects either everybody or it affects certain cross sections of people on the staff. We all know, churches, any organization, for-profit, non-profit, change management is hard.
Yeah.
So anytime HR rolls out something, people are like, even if it's better for them oftentimes, they're like, it's different than what I've done for the last 5 years. So people feel more comfortable with what they know rather than what the possibility may be. Yeah. So the whole idea that I would say is you don't have a plan, you plan to fail, right? And so having communication of how you roll things out is critical. One of the things that I always talk about is you have to know your audience. So you should have a plan for your audience. So who are it's like dropping a drop in a pond of water. It has a ripple effect. So who's the ripple going to hit? Right. So what are the ripples in your organization that you need to talk to about certain things? Yeah. Do you have stakeholders in from each group that you've said, hey, we're thinking about doing this? What are some ways that you think are, this group would respond well to taking this in? Does it take more work? Yes. On the front end, not on the back end when you're trying to deal with everyone being upset about this change that has come across or that. And sometimes change is just hard, period. Even when it's not a good change, when you're having to restructure, like we're having to talk with a lot of churches about how to restructure right now because a lot of churches coming out of COVID are like, we need to change some things. Giving may be down or attendance might be down or they've realized opportunities through COVID made the church innovate quicker than they ever have in probably the last couple hundred years. Yeah. Right. And it maybe even more. So they realized, we can do things that we've never done. So they got a little bit more agile. They got a little bit more quick to change. But that's hard for people, especially people who have been around, churches that have been around for a long time and they've been around with that church for a long time. Yeah. So I think, without getting too specific, change management is important. Anything you roll out should have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. Yeah. And the thing is that people see the effort that you put into the plan. And you can tell them that. But if they see that no effort's been put into it, they don't think you care because you haven't shown them. Right. Yeah. Communicate is probably one of the biggest areas, but it's also have someone on your team. If you don't have a strategic mind, and that's how I'm built, is have someone strategically think through it from start to finish. To go, okay, what could this look like? How could our teams respond to this? How could we empathize with our people enough to understand where they're at so we can understand how this will impact their day-to-day? Because oftentimes when those decisions are being made from a leadership level, we're not thinking about the different levels of the organization and how these changes could impact them. Yeah. So I think communication is big. Having a plan is big, all the things I mentioned. There's more there. Sure. It's a really good question because I think this is an area that is a struggle.
I like that you mentioned have stakeholders from each area, whether it's area of ministry or different teams or even your volunteers or some of your key attenders who aren't on staff. I like that you mentioned that because there's nothing worse than having an initiative roll out, whether it's HR or any type of change management. I like that you're including change management, not just the HR piece, but something rolls out and your area feels completely unrepresented. You're like, this changes everything. Yeah. I see the goal and this is actually a good thing, but man, it's going to take our team 6 months to get there. and you have to do this tomorrow, and nobody was there from our team to say,
absolutely,
we love this, but this is what we need to get there. So key stakeholders from across the board. I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Good.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges I think and missteps that the church will make is they feel that they've rolled something out by making an announcement. They'll go, oh, hey, by the way,
we announced it.
Yeah, we talked about it in one staff meeting that one time, and it was this massive change that had huge
you're welcome.
effects. Yeah, it's like we did our job well.
Yeah.
That's not.
Check.
It's more than that. And I think that we talked about handbooks earlier. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we do with AirV, it's a service that we offer. We do custom staff handbooks. Actually, we probably sell that service more than almost any other service that we have. A part of it is we give a rollout plan. This is something that you could, whether it's in a staff meeting for 5 minutes or it's something that you can email your team, highlight this in January, highlight this in February, highlight this in March. Huge. Because oftentimes, as we talked with churches, we realized early on, we'd give them this product that we all worked and collaborated on, and they're like, so what do we do with it? And I'm just like, we got to create a tool for it. And we've done that, many years ago now. And it's one of the favorite parts that we give to churches and ministries that we serve, that they're like, this is really helpful for us. So.
What a crazy idea. Here's a thing, and here's a plan of how to use the thing.
Use the thing, absolutely. Yeah, if we have it's like handing someone a tool and then saying, oh, we want you to become a master carpenter now. And oftentimes we feel like the tool is the answer, but there's a skill set related to the tool. And I like thinking of that kind of the way of the carpenter. You're not going to hand a novice, advanced tools and be like, build me a house. You're going to have them walk and grow in the process and grow in that skill set, so they can use the tool better and better.
I love that.
Well, you mentioned you mentioned just the handbook and kind of the rollout, but what are some of the ways that you all do partner with churches? What are some of the services you offer, especially anyone listening to this and they're like, we're in trouble. We need help.
We don't have a handbook.
We are
out of compliance.
Exactly. What is it that you all can help with and do to partner with ministries?
Yeah, there's a long list, but there's a core kind of service group that we have that I think would probably be best. And thanks for allowing me the opportunity to kind of talk about that, because we do a lot of things for churches to help them understand those two pieces that I mentioned. How to get in compliance, because you're most likely out. We find that 9 out of 10 churches that we do an HR audit with, which is one of the services, is usually grossly out of compliance. Not just one major, but it's usually multiple. So 9 out of 10, that's a pretty intense rate. And the reason is because there's... it's A+ of failure.
In the wrong way.
The wrong way, exactly. And then the other part is just best practice. A lot of churches can do things better. They just don't know what they can or can't do. So they find themselves in this area of being paralyzed. So the services that we have try to reflect getting them in a really good place in both of those areas. So one of those is the HR audit that I just mentioned. HR audit in simple terms is like any other audit, whether it's financial or manufacturing or anywhere that has audits. They go and they look at those two things usually. Compliance, are you in compliance, are you out? And are you doing what you say you're doing, and can you do it better in regards to best practice? So our audit provides churches and ministries a baseline for where they're at, so they actually know, oh, this is where we're at in regards to HR. And then we also give them a gap analysis checklist, which provides them really an understanding of how to move forward. Perfect. So not only a baseline, but an action plan too. Of, hey, this is where you're out of compliance. It's all color-coded and prioritized so that they can take a look and go, okay, we need to attack this first. And oftentimes we end up helping churches after we're done with that audit. Usually about 85 to 90% of the churches that we do an audit with move on with us to do a continuing service, because oftentimes they say, we don't have the horsepower or the mastery to be able to get that done, or both. So we walk alongside them, disciple them through the process. We don't just do a tick list, but we take you along with us so that you start to learn the why. Because part of that communication to the staff is letting them know this is why this is important. And also the other thing too is we help a lot of people who are a part of that leadership communicate it to the staff, the leadership staff or the elder board or whatever the church governance method is, because they're usually the only person in the room. Now they're not. We're in the room with them. So an HR audit is a powerful tool. I talked about the custom staff handbook, the service that we do, for all the reasons that I mentioned before. That's another one. One of the things that we try to do too, excuse me, is educate. And we talked about that 30 to 40% difference that you had mentioned, that I said in the beginning part of the conversation, we have a certification called the HRMP, or HR Ministry Professional, which is 5 master classes plus a test at the end that gives certification as a ministry HR professional. We have a cohort. All the cohorts we've ever launched have always sold out, which is amazing.
Wow.
And we launched this quite a few years back, and it's been very popular. And also we have a self-paced version as well to really bring an education to the ministry world of how important this is, because there's nothing like that out there. We already talked about it. It's not happening in seminary. There's not really anyone who's doing it. So we saw a need, we filled the need by doing that. The other thing we do is we have a lot of other services. We do compensation audits and analysis. We do, we have a church-specific sexual harassment training that we've built with actual church and ministry case studies, rather than using that really awkward white-labeled one of people in cubicles kind of going around each other doing the weird dance. So we've tried to address things as we've seen them come. We have a lot of other services. Those are some core ones that we do offer, though, and how we help churches and ministries, really all across the country. We're really privileged to be able to do that, and all the things that we do scale. We help churches that are having 50 people in the seats, and we help churches that have 15,000 in the seats, and everywhere in between. So everything that we do can scale. And one of the things that we always try to let people know is we have some base services that can help. If you've got an HR question, we can do just general consulting by the half an hour or the hour. Because don't go to Google. It's like the worst HR place to live. You'll always almost get the wrong answer, because the answer needs to really be customized to the state you're in, or the employee count that you have, or a variety of other factors. And then we have some basic ongoing services that really help churches on a monthly basis, where we could really walk side by side with them and mentor them.
So what I heard is relying on Google is a great way to continue being out of compliance and breaking all the rules. And
we have a basic service called Atron Call that is kind of one of the parts of the service is like we're your HR Google. So you can just ask your question through a ticketing system and get a compliant answer. And then you also have a mentor that you meet with 25 minutes a month who can tell you about the cadence of HR, ask any questions, hair on fire questions that you might have, et cetera. So, that's a couple of the things that we do where we're able to serve and really help churches and disciple churches well.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Well, one thing we ask everyone on the show, our goal is to empower healthy churches. And so we like to hear from people. What in your mind, what is one essential component of a healthy church?
They're such good questions. These are great questions.
Appreciate it.
They are. No, they are.
It's the hope.
I think the easy answer for me to say is, HR, having HR systems in place, because that's what we do. But I think it's the heart behind it. I think that what I would say is the church, we should be masters of discipleship. And you've heard me say discipleship more times probably than any other word, because we should be master disciplers. And that's what we're after from an HR standpoint. So I think having a discipleship plan, to be intentional about how you're discipling your team and what that looks like, because that's your 12. Jesus had his 3 and his 12 and so on and so forth. We should put a higher degree of success not on how many people we have in the seats, but how we're discipling those groups of people well. So I think, HR would be the easy answer for me, but having plans for things that you can execute well. And we've talked a little bit about that, I think is essential as it relates to HR.
That's awesome. Would love if you could just share with us a little bit, as people have heard this, heard what you do, heard about, or maybe realize the ways that they need to go. How can they get in touch with you, with just to talk with somebody, connect, and maybe explore working with you all?
That's great. So they can go to our website at hrministrysolutions.com. That's probably the easiest way. Not only will you be able to contact us, but you'll be able to see all of the services that we offer. Awesome. Usually at that point, our website does a really good job connecting you to usually my team, who really takes care of that intake of potential clients, so we can really customize something that is going to work for you. That's important to us. We really want to understand who you are, so we can understand which service best serves you.
Another cameo from the conference announcer. We just want to thank him for this, the contribution.
I appreciate the interruption.
This segment is brought to you
by that guy.
By that guy.
Yeah.
We need to get his name, I think.
We should introduce him. We should bring him over. Did you know that you've inadvertently been in a couple of our episodes?
This is Kyle. He's the conference announcer.
I don't know if we can hear over him. Is that audit where you like everyone to start? That's like, do not pass go. That's first base.
It's not always. It really depends on what the need of the church is.
Got it.
And if you're a new church or a church plant, if you've only been around for 3 years or less,
you might not have much to audit.
There's not much to audit.
Yeah.
So we actually have a foundation set up that we do with church plants and newer churches.
Very cool.
I mean, there was a church that I talked to that had been around for 40 years. They were a smaller church, and they didn't have anything set up at all.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, just because you've been around for 40 years doesn't mean anything. And they went through our foundation setup, went through the whole thing. They did, and we have a lot of things that are included in that. They built a strong foundation.
Nice.
So they will have something to audit in the future.
That's great.
So
that's awesome.
Got it.
Well, we're going to do we call it our final five, rapid fire. And we'll jump into that. First one is this.
Okay.
One book that you'd recommend to church leaders.
Oh, that's a great question. Because there's a lot of really good ones out there. We talked about Burnout earlier.
Yeah.
And I think Running on Empty by Wayne Cordero is one that comes to mind as a book that I've read a few different times that I think is a great book that illustrates what happens when you do and some practical steps on how to avoid burnout.
Yeah.
That would be, as recommendations are piling up in my head of other books.
Yeah. No,
I think that's a
great.
great book. You can get it, pretty inexpensive, and it's a must read in my opinion.
Nice.
When this episode's air, you can comment in the comment section of your own episode all of the other recommendations.
Yeah, all right.
Like,
Okay.
now that I'm thinking about it, you can just go to town.
Yeah, that one's definitely up there though.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Number 2, what is the last thing that you listened to, like Apple or Spotify? Do you have a musical guilty pleasure?
Musical?
It doesn't have to be. We would accept audiobook, but
Okay.
I want to know what everybody's like musical guilty pleasure is.
Yeah, right.
So actually,
That's what we're really trying to get at. Be
Yeah.
like, oh, this audiobook. Like, nah,
So
fine.
I was a little nostalgic the other day, and I actually remember what I was listening to. I was actually listening to one of the first albums from Switchfoot, The Legend of Chin.
Oh, yeah.
That was like 25 years old.
Yeah.
That I have a lot of memories, and I was feeling nostalgic, and
I love it.
I just wanted some like chill vibes, and that's what I listened to.
Didn't they
love
just
it.
release a 20-year? It was Switchfoot,
A
right?
Beautiful Letdown.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yep.
Thanks.
So yeah, that was I think their first album when they were in college in San Diego. And not that I want to date myself too much, but I may have been in college in San
I
Diego.
might have been there.
So it brings me back and takes me back. So that's a great question.
Perfect.
I love it. What's your favorite piece of technology? And you can't say your iPhone or whatever your phone.
That's
choice
right
is.
where my mind went.
Nope.
Not
allowed.
So okay, favorite piece of tech. I would say probably my AirPods. I use them all the time. They
Nice.
kind of become an extension of the phone.
Yes.
So I'm always using them on calls and meetings. How many times do we see people just walking around in their ear, with them on? So I would say that would be it.
Nice. Yeah.
I appreciate that it's less weird just to be walking and talking to yourself. Like when Bluetooth was like, what is that guy doing? But now it's like,
right?
Especially when people were touching their ear, they're like, are you Secret Service? What's happening here?
Yeah.
no. Yeah, I appreciate that. Is there a quote, a piece of wisdom, a chunk of knowledge that has stuck with you throughout the years?
Yeah, there's a few. I think what would relate well to this conversation. So one that comes to mind. One of my mentors from a long time ago said, focus equals power, and the things that you focus on have power over your life. So that's either good or bad. So focus equals power. Things that you focus on have power over your life. So I thought that was a great quote of one of my early mentors that has always kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I like that.
All right, last one. One thing that you'd like to communicate to our audience of church leaders.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that I've said during this are probably the things that I would want to communicate. I think the big thing for those in your audience is ministry is hard. Ministry is hard because we have a God that is worthy to be served. And that's hard to do because it requires a lot from us as ministry leaders. And I know a lot of the people who are listening to this are ministry leaders.
Yep.
And I would just say I want to encourage you. It's hard, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
You are loved and appreciated even when it doesn't feel that way. You're serving the kingdom And there is so much value in that, even though it may not feel like it at times. Yeah. And I think that the more that you can spread that message of hope to your team and to your people, the more they'll transmit it to the people in the congregation and in the community. Yep. So I think that there's a lot of hope and love for people in your audience that are those leaders. And what we strive to do is bring further hope and really just edification to that group of people. Yeah. And so, that's what I would say. You're honest. Keep doing what you do. God, awesome. We love you. God loves you. Yeah. And we're going to continue pointing everyone to Jesus the best we can.
Yeah. That's good.
That's great. Well, we appreciate your time. Appreciate the wisdom that you shared.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
We appreciate Kevin, the announcer.
Yeah.
He was great. He did a great job. Yeah, he showed up twice. I mean,
he showed up more than I was expecting. Yeah. And so,
or hoping.
Overall, it was great. So we appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Yeah. Awesome.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.